Marketing strategy is where you're going. Marketing tactics is how you're going to get there. What does good look like? If I'm being more strategic, what does good look like in a year for me to come back to you and you get, okay, I said be more strategic and now I have been.
Hello and welcome to Adventures in Local Marketing from BrightLocal, the marketing podcast for marketers who want to do good local SEO. In the upcoming episodes, I'll be chatting with a smorgasbord of marketers who each bring their unique insight into the local marketing landscape. Each episode is going to offer up a one-stop overview of our guest's chosen topic area. It's going to offer tips and tactics that you'll be able to dash off and implement right away, as well as offer insights that will get your brain cogs whirring. I'm your host, Claire Carlile, and I'm BrightLocal's local search expert, as well as a chartered marketer with over 20 years' experience of working with local businesses of all shapes and sizes. So today we're going to be drilling deep into the brain of strategy nerd Andi Jarvis. So Andi is the founder and strategy director of Eximo Marketing, which is a marketing strategy consultancy based in Belfast and Liverpool in the UK. And Andi also hosts the Strategy Sessions podcast, which is a show that interviews some of the best marketers in the world. And I need to let you know that Andi likes to talk at length about being a dad, his barbecue, rugby league, boxing and cricket. Like it or loathe it, marketing strategy should be at the heart of everything that we as local marketers do. So as well as revealing the top mistakes that businesses make when working on their marketing strategy, Andi's going to talk us through his guide to writing effective strategies, aligning tactics to goals, and mapping out a plan of action. So buckle up and get ready to talk strategy. Welcome to the show, Andi.
Thank you for having me, Claire. It is an honour. An absolute honour, a privilege to be here. It's right up there with when I got my knighthood as the greatest day of my life.
And I was there for that. That was a special day. So thank you very, very much. So obviously I've given you an absolutely awesome intro that you wrote yourself.
Yes,
so that was...
It's almost all true as well, thank you.
It's all true. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself before we start and we dive in?
I have a love of bad jokes and barbecues. Those two things are completely unconnected, but I do love them both. Often seen in the summer with a sausage in my hand, telling terrible jokes. So that's maybe just something else you'd like to know about.
I think that is some key information that we should all hold in our hearts about you. Okay, so this, I don't know if this is relevant to anyone else. This is not the first time that we have met. We've actually met in real life. And that was to do with speaking at Search Love, and I was very scared and very nervous, and I got hold of your number because you were speaking as well, and I asked you to be my friend, and you said yes.
Great things blossomed from there. So yeah, you were great. It was I stood you up for breakfast because I managed to hurt my leg out for a run around Philadelphia and hobbled back half an hour late to have breakfast together. And and look at beautiful things have blossomed from there. So it was great to be there with you.
And good times. I feel like I'm writing you a Google review. So 5 stars, Andi, good friend, would recommend, kind, nice person. Okay.
Excellent. Late for breakfast.
All right. So, Andi, how did you end up focusing on strategy, the thing that nobody writes, or if they do, no one actually reads it? What is it about strategy that floats your boat?
Well, I just love it, right? And I that's not much of an answer. I love it. Why do I love it? So partly, I think the journey to that is interesting. I'm very old, so I started off in what would now be known as traditional marketing, or marketing that nobody else does. It was called direct mail. And I did a lot of direct mail for a professional sports club. That was how we sold tickets. And that then developed into, we did a bit of MySpace, we did website stuff, email marketing, and just a traditional marketing job. As that evolved, it became more social media focused. I joined an agency, did a load of social media stuff, joined an agency that Barry Adams ran. So I then did a lot of SEO stuff as well. And all of this was great fun, but there was this sort of nagging doubt that there was something missing that held it all together. And we probably all know an agency that it doesn't matter what the question is, the answer is the service they sell. And sadly, I worked for one of those at one stage. So it didn't matter what the question was, the answer was always a service that we sold. And that never felt right for me. It always felt like, yeah, but it's not that simple, is it? There's always something else that goes. So as I started looking into it, I did an MSc in marketing. I graduated in 2015. Look at him.
So clever. So clever.
I got the funny hat and everything. So I did that. I think I graduated 2015. And as part of that, it sort of became apparent that the bit I was missing was strategy. And then from there on, I've kind of niched into that. And I think to go back to the part of your question, you're absolutely right. Strategy is the thing that either nobody writes, or if they do write it, nobody reads it. And that's a problem with, it's the reason I have a job, right? So please continue not writing it or not reading it. And when you don't know what's going on, it's Andi at Eximo Marketing Strategy.
Shameless plug. Shameless
plug. Yeah. But look, I think the problem comes is that either people don't know what strategy means and it scares them. When someone says, sit down and write a strategy, you sit down. The scariest thing in the world is a blank piece of paper. You don't know what to put on it. There's lots of things you do know what to do that need doing, so you just go back to doing them. That's one way that strategy doesn't happen. The other way strategy does or doesn't happen is there's some prick sat in an office who has strategist in their title or some senior job title who feels that this makes them the grandest person in the room, writes this strategy, kind of presents it to the board and sits back and goes, well, that's it. Strategy is done now. Doesn't tell anybody else about it or gives them a 128-page document that nobody ever reads. And after 2 or 3 weeks of whinging about it, everyone just goes on to getting back to doing all the stuff they always did. So that's kind of two of the classic ways that strategy does or doesn't happen in an organization. Both of them end up with the same solution, which is end up with the same issue, which is nothing happening strategically.
We are going to crack on with my idea for a little segment, which is I've called Define and Elevate. The reason being that because whenever I start with anything, I always just want to get some sort of short, snappy definition so I actually understand the concept. And then the idea behind the elevate bit is a bit like an elevator pitch. Why does this need to be part of my tool set? And I think because as marketers, we're trying to stay on top of everything. Digital marketing landscape, things change very quickly. AI or whatever. How am I going to stay on top of how to use this? Is there actually something relevant? Another thing is, and I think you referred back to this, is sometimes concepts are made to sound very complicated, so they're inaccessible for the people on the ground because, I want to you pay me top whack and I'll do you this amazing strategy and you're not going to be able to actually understand it. I'm going to obfuscate anything that's actually useful. So I think that's one of the things that has made me very stressed out about the idea of strategy, is that it's too big, it's too difficult, and no one's ever going to get it done. So my little challenge for you then is to give us a quick one-stop definition of marketing strategy, and then you're going to give your elevator pitch of why we all need to include it and remember to keep it in our toolbox.
Right. So, dead simple. Marketing strategy is where you're going. Marketing tactics is how you're going to get there. Right? Now, anything that's simple doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to do. And I'm not suggesting that it is easy to do because there are levels of complexity in it that you just can't get away from. But from a simple perspective, strategy is where you're going, tactics is how you're going to get there. In terms of elevating it, strategists love telling you that it's complicated. It can be. That it's more important than tactics. It's not. And that's, it can only be done by these highly paid consultants who have been brought in or whatever. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense, right? So it's strategy and tactics are linked inextricably. You can set a great direction on this wonderful document that if nobody's bought into it and no one knows what that document means, then the tactics don't end up helping you get there. So you've got strategy, which is great, but you never get there because your tactics are taking you in a different direction. Or you have tactics and you keep saying things like, yeah, we've done this amazing thing. And you can't quite gather why nobody else in the organization seems to care that you've done this really impressive thing. And that's because your tactics aren't connected to the strategy. So imagine if you think, strategy, where you're going, tactics, how you're going to get there. Imagine if the organization, I'm based in Belfast at the minute, right? Imagine if my organization wants to go from Belfast to Madrid. That is our strategy. That's where we're going. And I don't tell you that, so you come up with these wonderful tactics and we end up in Berlin. And you're there going, yay, we're in Berlin, isn't this great?
Yeah.
And you talk to the strategy director of the organization, he's sat there going, this is great, but they're doing sausages and talking in a really angry way. I wanted sunshine and tapas. Why am I in Berlin? That's broadly what's happening in your organization. When you come back and you go, look, we've won the SERPs for this thing. And you go, yeah, but we want to talk about this thing. Lack of alignment. Nobody cares. So strategy, where are you going? Tactics, how are you going to get there? Mm-hmm. Simple as that.
I think is that all in a nutshell then? You've done your elevator pitch in there as well, because if you don't align these things, if we're not working towards it, then it's just like, what our output isn't going towards a destination. It's just about deliverables, isn't it, without strategy, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And deliverables that can feel like you're doing great things. Right. And, you are busy. No one's saying you're not busy. No one's saying you're not good at what you do. You're doing amazing things. You are out there doing God's work every day in your agency, for your clients, or in-house for your organization. But if you're not aligned to the strategy, you're just running around making a lot of noise, doing great things. Now, sometimes you hear this thing, oh, no, but we're testing and learning. It's like, that's great. But let's at least pull the guardrails in that we're going to test and learn on. But I would say if I was going to point the finger of blame anywhere, I would point the finger of blame at strategists, not tacticians, for want of a better phrase. Because strategists, the Greek word strategy comes from strategios, which broadly means leader of the army, right? And strategists have always come from sort of military thinking into general company thinking, and it tends to be an elevated role, a senior role, a leadership role, that type of thing. And he's often done in ivory towers by people who have absolutely no clue what's going on the ground. My kind of ethos of strategy is that it's a top to bottom exercise. When I work with companies, you often go in and they're like, right, well, we've got director A, B, and C in the room. I'm like, great. Can I have the customer service person? Yeah, we'll get the director of customer service. No. Get me 2 people who spend all day on the phones talking to customers. They need to be in this room. Why? Sales. We've got the director of sales. I don't want the director of sales. I want the 2 people who do 700 miles a week driving around meeting customers. I want them in the room. Let's bring them in. When you make it a top to bottom exercise of everybody gets to say in a seat at the table, strategy becomes A, more connected to your organization, and B, much more useful for you. So it has to get out of the ivory towers. It really does.
I got some questions for you because I love questions. And the podcast is sort of an opportunity for me to consume the brain of somebody that I really want to speak to. So that's you, Andy. It's you.
Get the spoon out and start eating.
It's about your brain. So, Andy, tell me, what does it mean when a manager asks someone to be more strategic, and how do you stop yourself from poking that person in the eye?
So the simple answer, when your manager says to you, be more strategic, the simple answer is that they don't know what that means, right? It's really, they don't know what that means. Be more directional is another way of asking that question. Right? So how do you stop yourself poking them in the eye? This is an often asked thing, often at sort of senior manager, director level to heads of, that type of thing, it's often asked of them, be more strategic. And people talk to me like, what do they mean by that? And they could mean one of about a dozen things. And rather than physical violence, I think the best way to handle that is to go back with some specific questions and, answer that with a question and say, okay, what does good look like? If I'm being more strategic, what does good look like in a year for me to come back to you and you get, okay, I said be more strategic and now I have been. Or do you mean get involved in writing the strategy for the organization? Do you mean it? And ask some very specific questions, because what you will find is that 9 times out of 10, that person is just parroting something back that they really don't know what that means.
And maybe you just need to ask, okay, if you want me to be more strategic, would you like to share the strategy with me so I understand? And then that's where it's going to be like, oh, there isn't a strategy. So it's very difficult for me to be strategic.
It is. And it's often, that tends to be a question asked by poor managers. Generally speaking, it does. Or in organizations that are really under pressure in other places. So, sales aren't where they are. And basically the old phrase is shit rolls downhill, right? So someone on the board is having a go at someone who's having a go at someone, and it just lands on your desk. You might be more strategic. And typically, actually, what they mean is sell more stuff. There's another thing in there, which is not particularly strategic. It's much more tactical. But I'm never against selling things.
Give us maybe just a couple of the biggest mistakes that you see with regard to marketing strategy. And are those going to be sort of specific to size of business, or is there something general that is just like,
So the interesting thing I'd say about marketing strategy is that in anything other than kind of a massive conglomerate, somebody like Hitachi or Sony that makes so many different products and do a million different... But broadly speaking, for every company other than those, marketing strategy is broadly the same thing, right? So the biggest problems I tend to see is at some point in strategy, you have to look at marketing 101, which is segmentation, targeting, and positioning. And I think one of the biggest problems that I see is that either the segmentation's done terribly, the targeting is at best guesswork, and the positioning is often pretty good, but only positioning is context specific, right? So the position has to be relevant to the target. So you can spend a lot of time doing positioning because that's actually, it's a relatively easy exercise to do. And I say relatively easy. So the positioning can often be really, really good. But if your targeting's bad, it doesn't really matter how good that's done. So often those three are done in the wrong order or just not done at all. But the positioning's been, we've got this great position. Brilliant. Who's your target? So who have you positioned for then if you don't know who you're targeting? So, at some stage, segmentation, targeting. So segmentation is defining all the groups of people. Targeting is picking which of those people you're going to go after. And then positioning is basically, why does the thing you do matter to them? And that's whether, if you're a 2-person business or 200-person business, you still need to take those steps. So, I think that doing those things right is probably the thing I see done badly the most.
Okay. If you think about local businesses, whether that's small, medium, large, people with a local offering or service area businesses, or any business, local search strategy, digital marketing strategy, business strategy. Do we really need separate ones for all of these, or how does that work?
A very quick description of what those three are. Some people would argue that you can't have anything other than a marketing strategy, right? So you've got business strategy that tends to be 3 to 5, 7 years of what the organization wants to do and achieve. Marketing strategy is 1-year increments that are helping you move towards that thing, right? So if your business is maybe a local florist that is doing really, really well in your area, and the business strategy is in 5 years' time, you want to have 5 shops and be doing 50% of your business online, right? That's your 5-year strategy. Your marketing strategy is not 5 years, because what you want to do in year 1 is open 2 shops. What you want to do in year 2 is that has to go to 5 shops, and then you've got to launch an online offering and blah. So the things you're doing in marketing are different every year, right? And then some people would argue you can't have anything below that. But I would say that you can absolutely have a local search strategy, an SEO strategy, a PPC strategy, a TV strategy, radio strategy. Because when you work in agencies, as I have done, or you work with agencies and with companies where you have specialists in those roles, they're not always trying to. Your marketing strategy might say, we've got 5 different target customers, right? So the florist might have funerals, weddings, God forbid they might do what are those awful gender reveal things, right? And so you've got different types of customers. So you've got new parents, weddings, and all that. So you're selling to different people at different times. But your local search team might only be bothered with one of those. There may be a good reason why you only focus online on, say, gender reveal, because you know that's what people are searching for online. You know that all the funeral stuff comes from referral from the undertaker. It's part of the marketing strategy to keep those relationships. It's not part of your local search strategy. Like the social team might be saying, we're going to focus on gender reveal because we know people look on TikTok and Instagram for that. On local search, you might be doing, I'm going to focus on weddings because we know people are looking for wedding venues in South Wales. Right. So I think it is important to have a search strategy and different strategies underneath. So can you have a digital marketing strategy? No. Because if strategy is where are you going, tactics is how you're going to get there, right? Yes, I'm saying you can have those sort of strategies for each tactic, okay? But digital marketing is assuming that all of digital is one thing, and you've already pre-decided that that's how you're going to get there. That might not be the answer. If you're doing funerals, for example, to keep banging this example away, funerals tend to impact older people more than younger people, generally speaking. Older people, what's the best way to target them? It's not TikTok, right? It's not going to be Instagram. How do you target older people if you want them to buy flowers? It's probably still newspapers. It's probably radio ads. It's probably, billboards around town and stuff like that. If you say you're having a digital marketing strategy, you've already decided that you can't do those things before you've decided who you're targeting and why they're going to buy from you. So can you have channel strategies? Yes. But you have to do them after you have a marketing strategy. And that has to come after you have a business strategy. So it has to work from top down. Business first, marketing second, channel third.
Don't let the idea of those different strategies that would fall underneath your marketing strategy. If you're a small business, you're going to get it all down in one thing. It's more if you're working with disparate teams and agencies that you might need all those others. I'm just trying not to scare myself off.
And look,
if
you run a small business, right, everything I've just said can go on one page. You might be, let's keep with that small florist example and maybe say that the ambition isn't quite as great. Maybe you have one store and you want to open a second shop in 2 years' time, right? Write that down on a bit of paper, stick it on the wall. How are you going to get there? That's your business strategy, right? So what do you need to do in marketing? You need sales to hit X. How are you going to do that? I'm going to talk to these people. I need to do 25 funerals a month for that to start to bring the revenue in. Okay, so how do I do that? And all that goes on one bit of paper. My key thing for small businesses is when you've written that down, put it on a wall where you can see it every single day. Because there's
or
a
even
lot
not
goes
even
on.
small businesses. Everyone needs to become
Every
back.
business, yeah.
It's like that accountability, isn't it? It's like, well,
Absolutely.
why are we here? That's why people have got their personas up or they've got whatever. It's reminding who they're serving, isn't it? Why are we here? What do we do? Why do we do it? What can marketers do if they're not involved in setting marketing strategy at their firm, but they're responsible for actually delivering the outputs?
Yeah, and the outputs that don't often make a huge amount of sense because you don't understand the strategy because no one's ever told you it. I think it goes back to what you said earlier on when someone says be more strategic is ask for a copy of the strategy, right? And some organizations might not give you a copy because they'd be worried about it being handed out to somebody else. A bit weird, but okay. But they should be telling you the strategy. If you can't cascade that strategy across all people, how do you know that anyone's going for it? Anyone's working towards it. So just ask them and say, can you share the sort of highlights from the strategy so we all know the direction we need to pull in so we can help everyone achieve that? Because it might help us come up with some new and better ideas to get there, and it just creates a bit of buy-in. Awkward conversations to have with your boss, because if they've decided not to share it, it's probably an ego thing. and that's hard to get around. But that's what I see. It's ego mainly.
Andy, I'm going to take you somewhere very exciting now.
Ooh.
Really, this is the part of the podcast that I'm calling Room 404, which is sort of mildly funny, really. So it's the place where you get to put one of your pet strategy peeves in a place. I was going to say in a place to die, but that's not very friendly. It's a quiet place for it to retire, and live out its days. Because
we could
you don't want
sunset
to.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that. You don't want to hear it anymore. So can you tell us about your word, phrase, or concept that you want to abandon in room 404 so we never have to hear it again?
People using the word strategy when they mean tactics only for the benefit of making themselves sound clever. Now, I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to make up a name. Let's suggest for a moment that you could be a well-known, balding digital marketer called, I don't know, but let's make a name up, Peel Natel. And everything you did was a strategy because you thought it made you sound clever when you were recording your endless videos of other people's content. That would grind my gears. That would make me angry. It would make me want to kill kittens, sadly. And I don't like doing that. And look, it's, these are my number one YouTube strategies. It's a tactic. These are the strategies you should be using on TikTok. It's a tactic. These are the reason why it's like. Now, I genuinely think I'm being a bit facetious. I think it comes again from people not really understanding the difference between strategy and tactics. But there are people who, strategists, again, are probably at fault because they love letting people know they're more important than everybody else. So people start to use strategy because they think it sounds more important, more grand, bigger, better.
Yeah. So we need to print your poster, which you will be producing for us. Strategy is where you're going, tactics, how you get there. And then we won't fall into that trap. So we can leave that there. Should we leave it in room 404?
Yeah, leave it. I think there's kind of a bit, like, the poster could be a bit kind of Lord Alfred Kitchener, kind of your strategy needs you, that type of thing.
Okay, yeah, do it.
Let's do it.
Well, if you can design that, again, there's going to be a lot of show notes here, aren't there? There's a lot of downloadable resources. And speaking of, useful things, Andy, it's that time when you give to us a special gift, a gift to us, the listeners, with love. So your present for us today is you are going to talk us briefly through your 4-point guide to marketing strategy success.
Your 4-point guide to marketing strategy success is you only need to answer 4 questions to have a marketing strategy, right? This is 4 questions. The first one is, who are you targeting, right? And define that. I'll come back to each one of them. The second one is, why are they going to buy from you? The third one is what your objectives for this year, and the fourth one is what's the problem you're solving, right? So I'm actually going to work through them backwards. What problem are you solving? I'm going to go back to my great example of the florist that wants to expand, right? You have one florist shop, you want to expand to 5 shops in 5 years and be selling more online. The problem you're solving in year 1 is you need to double the number of shops that you have from 1 to 2, right? That is the problem you are solving with marketing this year. So you need to drive demand coming into the shop. There's no point driving demand to the website because you want to drive the demand to the shop so you can open a second unit, right? So that's the problem you're solving. So what your objectives that you're going to set from that? Your objectives you're going to set are going to be, number of sales per week, per month, per day, whatever it's going to be. So then you need to decide who you're going to target and why they're going to buy from you. Segmentation, targeting, positioning again. That can be the better detail you can put into that, the better it's going to be. If you're a small business, especially if you've got a physical presence, it's also about like capturing who's coming in. But the big decision you have to make is, do I need more of the people who are already walking through the door, or do I need to bring in a new market to be able to expand my sales? And that's the question you've always got to ask when it comes to who you're targeting is, do I just need more of the people I've got, or do I need someone completely new? Smaller businesses, you're going to have to run most of the time on intuition on that. Is there going to be, back to the florist example, do I think there's more funerals that I can capture, therefore I just need to get more older people coming in to buy flowers for loved ones who've died? Or do I need to expand into doing flowers for weddings as well? And if you're a bigger company with more resources, you can do things like you can look at the amount of what's your key, in terms of the keywords you're targeting, how close are you to dominate in the SERPs? If you're number one for all the high volume terms, you probably need to diversify. If you're nowhere near first page for all the key terms, you can probably just get better at going after what you're doing. So the more data you have, the better you can make that. So that once you've done that, that's your targeting, then you've got to decide, why does it matter? Back to the florist example, if you talk about you've decided to expand into weddings, you have to come up with a different position, because you can't use the same language you use to talk at funerals to talk to people who are buying flowers for getting married, because that's a different thing. They want a different position. They want to know about service. They want to know about love. They want some great pictures. They want to know you're going to be there on the day. You want to funerals. They just want a bouquet that says mum, dad, auntie, uncle, and they want to know that it's going to arrive on time, and different position. So you've got to decide, why is that person or that group of people going to buy from you? So it's 4 simple questions. What problem are you solving? What are your objectives? Who are you targeting, and why are they going to buy from you? Right? They're the 4 things you need. And it's as simple or as complicated as you need to be. Right? It's simple, but it's not easy. That's the difference.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it everything hangs on those 4 questions. So whether or not you don't have a strategy in place, and that can be, it doesn't matter the size of your business. A lot of people are sort of running on not having I don't know, my experience of working is that there might be some sort of objective somewhere, but nothing has been pulled together in a strategy. I love these 4 points, because whether you are working with a small business, or you are a small business that has no strategy in place, this is a really easy way for you to do it. And whether you're working for a big business that has had a third party put together some very expensive strategic document, which is 650 pages, if it's not answering those questions, then it's not doing the job of a strategy. So I love that it's so simple, but you can apply it across everything.
Yeah, and what I would say, if your small businesses are listening as well, is that a lot of small businesses typically know those answers. If I sit and talk to small business owners, and I do sometimes at some local events and things, I ask them these questions. They know all the answers to them. So if you're a small business listening, you probably go, oh yeah, well, I know this, right? The only problem with it existing between your ears is it's not scalable. So if there's 2 other people work for you, you need to just get it out from between your ears, write it down on a bit of paper, tell them about it, and stick it up on the wall. Because otherwise it only resides in your head.
I'm just thinking about agencies as well, because we sort of dip in and out to these businesses, which again could be small, medium, could be large. And then if they don't have anything in place, you're going to need to find a way of drawing that out sort of quite quickly and easily if it doesn't already exist, because you need that to go ahead and put together, your tactics. So, that's just a lovely, 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 lovely framework. For anyone that is listening and is thinking, Andy, he's a dude. He knows his stuff. I like him. Strategy sounds pretty awesome. Can you give them maybe, I don't know, thinking of some sort of seminal text, which would be go and read this, it's about strategic things, and then maybe recommend some sort of more sort of short, medium length content, either blogs or whatever. So we'll include this in the show notes anyway, but I'd love to get your ideas on what is like, okay, this is interesting, go away and read this.
So it's a big business book, but the kind of one of the leading texts on marketing strategy or business strategy as well is Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and it's quite an accessible book. It can be a bit theory in parts, but it's quite an accessible book and well worth a read if you're wanting to kind of move more into strategy. It's not necessarily a book you'd read if you just want to write a marketing strategy for your business, but if you want to move more into strategy, it's a great place to start. In terms of more sort of pop culture text and things like that, there's a very sweary professor called Mark Ritson. Now Ritson focuses exclusively on kind of big businesses that you've heard, Tesla's, McDonald's, Louis Vuitton, that type of thing. But his writing is so entertaining and enjoyable that not everything he writes about you can sort of put down to a florist in South Wales. But every second or third article will be something really useful in there that you can take away from. So Ritson's really good at a really good read and really good to dive into.
If our listeners, and I'm sure they will be, are thinking, I want more of Andi, where can I find him? Tell us.
You can find it. Well, if you want to find Andi, you can find him mostly on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm Andi with an I, so pretty easy to find, Andi Jarvis. And I'm over on LinkedIn and Twitter, often sharing opinions on strategy, often having a pop at politicians. That's on Twitter mainly. Or you can visit my website, eximomarketingstrategy.com. Look at the keyword-rich URL. And I also have a podcast.
I really like that. That's amazing. Tell us about your podcast.
So the strategy sessions it's just the third season is just about finishing up, and it was a lockdown project. I thought, do you know what the world needs is another man in his 40s with a podcast.
They do. Yeah, they do.
They do. So, but look, it's an interview podcast. So I do, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. And I've interviewed some of my heroes, some of the world's best marketers, and just some really interesting people to talk mainly about strategy. There's a couple of other kind of interlopers in there, but it's mainly about strategy. So Mark Ritson's been on. There's a great Swedish bearded fellow called JP Castlin who has influenced my work hugely. April Dunford, who's one of the great minds in marketing. If you want to know anything about positioning, she was an early episode. Look, 6 episodes now, something like that over time. Don't listen to them all. Nobody needs 56 hours of me in their ears.
But it's not just you, Andi, though. It's these guests, isn't it? So
yes, it is the guests. It is, yeah.
So there's excellent more listening for people that want to also get to experience the brains of all of these other excellent strategists. So I need to say to you, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andi.
And I need to say to you, thank you for having me. It is an honour, a pleasure, and I love doing podcasts, and especially love doing podcasts with you, Claire, because it's just great fun. Thank you.
Super duper. Thank you very much. I feel like I've learned lots of things. I've learned the things. I've actually got some things to do when we're finished. I'm going to make all of those downloadable resources. I'll be linking to them in the show notes. And a big thank you to people coming along and listening today. So you can subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And then we will let you know when we have got a new podcast release. I'm going to use this as my opportunity to ask questions of all of the clever people on my list of clever people to talk to. But to start with you, Andi, was a pleasure and a joy. So thank you again.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you next time.